This anime is about an high school student, named Kanaame, who accidentally triggers a cursed game on his phone, unaware of its deadly consequences. One night, his friend Hamada is being chased by someone, wearing a scary bear helmet and carrying a knife. Hamada considers calling his friend, Kyoto, for help, but decides to call Kanaame instead. Unfortunately, Hamada gets trapped and the attacker catches him. Hamada tries to fight back by throwing paper cutters, but the attacker dodges them and hurts him badly. The next morning, Kanaame is looking at cheap heavy bikes online because he doesn't have much money. His friend Yota comes over and asks if he saw the street art outside the station. He says weird street art with body outlines is popping up all over Shibuya, and everyone's going crazy about it. He shows Kanaame some pictures, and they find it both creepy and interesting. Just then, their friend Hiroyuki walks in and asks if they've seen Hamada anywhere. They say maybe he's absent, and ask Hiroyuki how they and Hamada got their new bikes, and if they found any good part-time jobs. Hiroyuki says it's not like that, and asks them to let him know if they spot Hamada. Just then, Kanaame mentions that he got a strange notification from Hamada last night, and decides to check it now. He finds a link to a free mobile game called Darwin's Game, and opens it right away out of curiosity. They wonders if Hamada got hooked on it, which might explain why he's skipping school. Knowing what it's about, Hiroyuki tells Kanaame not to open the app, but out of curiosity Kanaame opens it. Suddenly, a snake jumps out of the screen and bites Kanaame's neck. He falls down and loses consciousness. Then, his mobile screen shows he's now a player, and sadly his friend Hamada has passed away. The game is starting in an hour. Kanaame's friends take him to the infirmary and lay him on a bed. After a short nap, he wakes up feeling better. The nurse suggests that he should go back to the class if he feels okay, but he insists he feels awful and fills out a form to leave early from school. After that, he meets Hiroyuki and Yota, who are also planning to skip class today. Yota suggests they go for karaoke, but Hiroyuki comes up to Kanaame and says seriously that he needs to discuss something about the game Hamada sent to him. They agree to meet at Kanaame's house later that night. Kanaame wonders what Hiroyuki is on about, but agrees and lets him go. He spends the day hanging out with Yota. Later in the afternoon, on the train ride home, Kanaame does the dumbest thing he could think of, and opens the game app, ignoring his friend's warning from earlier. He sees his character on the screen and brushes off his earlier concerns, thinking it's just a normal game. The battle stats show red 0, with a start button below it. He taps it and instantly gets paired with someone named Banda, who Kanaame recognizes as the local baseball club's mascot dressed in a panda costume. Kanaame wonders how the game already gave him an avatar name when he hasn't even made an account yet. Just then, he turns around and sees the real Banda sitting in front of him, with a knife in his hand. He stands up and starts walking towards him, all creepy-like, then attacks Kanaame with the knife. Kanaame dodges his attack and asks him what he's doing, but Banda just keeps attacking, without saying a single word. Kanaame blocks his knife with his bag, kicks him away, then runs for his life and gets off the train. He dashes to a nearby police station, and tells the officer that this weird-looking person tried to kill him. The officer thinks Banda hits Kanaame, and tries to stop Banda. Banda, without saying anything, takes down the officer in one strike. He moves towards Kanaame for the final blow, when suddenly, he gets shot in the back by a crossbow. It's Hiroyuki standing there, with the weapon. Hiroyuki tells Kanaame he'll win if he can escape the killer, or wait out until the timer stops on his screen. Banda uses invisibility and disappears like a real-life ninja. But Hiroyuki is able to see Banda and able to attack at him. Banda got shocked when his invisibility suddenly wore off, but then he went crazy and charged straight at Hiroyuki, stabbing him in the stomach. Kanaame lifted Hiroyuki and took him outside to find an ambulance. He asked what was happening and how Banda turned invisible. Hiroyuki explained it was probably his sigil power, which is a part of Darwin's game. They hide in the parking building from that killer. Kanaame tried calling for help, but Hiroyuki said they couldn't contact anyone outside the game. They sat tight, watching Banda scout the area for them. In this game, players' screens shows each other's rough positions, making it easier for killers to find their victims. Banda finally pinpointed them, in the parking building, and entered while they stayed hidden. Kanaame got a message, from someone named Shuka, offering help. Hiroyuki told Kanaame to run and leave him, saying he'd be safer that way. Kanaame heard him, but decided to distract Banda instead. He showed himself, and led Banda on a crazy chase. Finally, Kanaame left Banda behind, hiding in lockers. But Banda pulled out a gun he'd stolen earlier, and started shooting at every lockers. Then Kanaame suddenly turns the tables, and tackles him from behind, with a fire extinguisher, knocking him down. He jumps on top, and starts punching him, but Banda knocks him off, with a powerful punch to the face. As Banda advances towards him, with a knife, and invisibility on, Kanaame fears it's all over. But just then, a car driven by a couple of idiots, crashing into the invisible Banda, sending him flying into the wall. The idiots drive off in a hurry, thinking they hit something. Once they're gone, Banda becomes visible again and admits defeat. Kanaame's screen confirms it, and he watches as Banda peacefully vanishes. He says he enjoyed playing unlike his bad job, then disappears, leaving a body outline where he died. After that, Kanaame remembers his dying friend downstairs, and rushes towards him, calling an ambulance. But when he reaches the place, all he sees is a body outline there, and he realizes that Hiroyuki had died. Just then, he gets his final message, which says to survive from Hiroyuki. On a rooftop, the blonde girl Shuka gets a notification that her game friend Kanaame has defeated Banda, and says she is excited to play the game with him. The next morning, Kanaame wakes up at home and checks his game account. He finds out he won a ranked match, and got 10 points. Also, he's now ranked up to D3, and his life is still tough, but he unlocked the gacha feature. When he reads that, he tries the rare gacha feature for 1 point, winning a 2-star handgun. Suddenly, a delivery is thrown into his apartment. Opening the box, he finds a gun inside, and wonders how messed up this game really is. Kanaame texts Shuka, and they decide to meet in an abandoned warehouse at night. Kanaame chats with Shuka on text, and they decide to meet at an old warehouse at night. She plans to explain the game to him there. Initially, he's not sure about going, but decides to go anyway, since it's the only way to learn about the game. He leaves his gun behind, but spends all his money on a backpack full of self-defense tools. Meanwhile, some players from the 8th clan takes down some Yakuza members, killing everyone including their boss. They are investigating recent player deaths, with one case still open. Later that night, Kanaame meets Shuka at the warehouse. She lets him ask one question, before trusting him. He asks if there's a way to quit the game, but she explains the only ways are to die, or to win. He doesn't believe it, but she insists she didn't make the rules. She's just another player. Then she starts asking him questions, including about his sigil. She says, when new players start Darwin's game, a snake bite them. Snake gives them unique powers for playing this game. Player don't know when powers come, but they use it naturally. Screen shows name of power. Kanaame checks screen for his sigil name, but only error shows. Shuka say she can't trust someone who don't even know their sigil power's name. Then she plans to attack, but Kanaame blinded her with flashlight, and run away fast. He runs to the entrance, but Shuka closes the door, and attacks with her chains. Kanaame runs and hide behind the pipes. Shuka turn on all lights, and chases him. He tries all exits, but they are locked. Shuka says there is nowhere to run. She says she'll go easy on him if he comes out of hiding. She uses chain to chase him, which is her sigil power. While running, Kanaame complains about the game, and wishes for a weapon. Suddenly, a gun appears in his hand. He's surprised, and turns to shoot. Shuka dodges the bullet and gets surprised by gun. After that, Kanaame keeps running, as Shuka chases after him, and he keeps saying to her, "Let's call it even, I don't want any fight." At one point, he gets a chance to rest, and thinks about what she said about using sigil powers, like it's normal. He remembers when he made a gun appear in his hand, and then uses his sigil to create some tape and wire to set up a trap. Later, he tricks her near the electricity box, and shoots at her, but the gun hits a pipe instead. Shuka dodges the bullet, but it makes lights go off. Kanaame say he adjusted his eyes for dark before, so he can attack even in dark. He dodges chains and run to Shuka, makes stun gun and pushes her down, and put handgun on her face. He says, he don't want her to disappear like others, and she understands, that he really don't know anything, about game's truth. She surrenders, and accepts defeat and obeys him now. Some of her points go to Kanaame. After the fight, he falls asleep on her lap, wake up in her bed next day. She asks him, to make our own clan, in Darwin's game. She also tells him about a feature in the game, where players can pay 10 points to remove their name, from a competition list. Kanaame checks his balance, and finds he has 639 points after winning against Shuka, last night. After hearing all this, he agrees to her request, to start a clan. She explains, that to create a clan, one must be at least rank B2. Kanaame suggests she should create the clan, since she's rank 4, but she insists, in situations like these, men should take the lead. They agree to discuss it further that night, and part ways. On his way home, Kanaame decides to see, how converting 10 points into cash works, and ends up with 1,000,000 yen in his bank account, which surprises him. Still, he considers this game pretty messed up. Suddenly, he gets a message on his phone, regarding treasure hunt event. The next day, Kanaame goes to the Moya statue in Shibuya, which is covered with a plastic sheet for some reason. Soon, Shuka arrives, and announces they'll go on their first date. Kanaame asks her, about the event modification they all received. She explains, that the event will take place in Shibuya, and it's important to familiarize themselves with the area beforehand. She warns him, about the dangers around Shibuya, especially near the statue covered earlier, where 12 people recently lost their lives. The area is controlled by the 8th clan, so there are usually many players there. Afterwards, they visit Yoyogi Park, and Shuka explains some rules of the game to him, such as not revealing anything related to game, to outsiders, and using secret terms in public. They also visit malls, where Shuka shops for clothes. Meanwhile, an analyst keeping track of Kanaame, sells information about him, to a member of the Danjo Boxing Club. In return, she asks for details, about a recent treasure hunt event notification, but he only knows that not all players received it. After that, he goes to the station, as he has some plans for Kanaame. Meanwhile, Kanaame is waiting outside for Shuka, to finish her makeup, when suddenly, Danjo Boxing Club clan's member steals his phone. The guy shows his face, and tells Kanaame to follow him. On their way, he mentions, that normally one can't use someone else's phone, to play the game, but losing one's phone is still a hassle, and may lead to your death. He advises Kanaame to follow quietly. He takes Kanaame to an alleyway, and mentions, that people are talking about him, as the solo newcomer, who defeated the infamous rookie hunter Banda, and the undefeated Queen Shuka. He challenges Kanaame to a battle, saying he's always wanted to test himself, against a strong player, and climb the ranks. Kanaame says, he doesn't want to fight, and got into the game without knowing what it was about, but the other guy doesn't accept it, and starts fighting, throwing punches at Kanaame. He lands a solid hit on Kanaame's face, knocking him down. Disappointed seeing Kanaame's strength, he tells him to call Shuka, or whoever takes care of him, saying he'll wait until they arrive, to finish Kanaame off. However, Kanaame surprises him, and hits him with a stun gun on his leg, revealing he plays alone, and isn't working with anyone. He prepares to strike again, with the stun gun. The boxing guy wonders, where does Kanaame kept his stun gun? But then realizes, that it must be related to his sigil. Kanaame rushes towards him again, with the stun gun, but the guy knocks him back, with a knee to his face. Kanaame holds his phone hostage with the stun gun, threatening to destroy it, unless the guy accepts defeat. Meanwhile, Shuka finishes her makeup, and wonders where Kanaame went. She calls the analyst girl, who tells her, that she had looked into the person Shuka asked about, and got a call from the guy, who wants to fight Kanaame. She doesn't think he wants to fight, and she also checked the 8th clan, but has little information on their newest member's sig. She doesn't believe he's their guy. She has almost no info on Wong, 8th clan's leader, because he's killed everyone who met him, and making the dead speak isn't her skill. Shuka says, she'll pay triple, if she can find information on the person she's looking for. The analyst asks, if she wants info on Kanaame. Hearing this, Shuka says, give all her info on him, and she'll let her live. Then she goes out, and finds Kanaame fighting a blonde boxer on the street, and attacks with chains, but he dodges. Kanaame threatens him again. Seeing no chance, the other guy surrenders, introducing himself as Inakai, from Danjo Boxing Club Clan. He gets his phone back, and says the treasure hunt event is starting. They look at their phones, and get wrapped in teleportation boxes. Shuka says they need to act before teleporting. They might all be split up. Then suddenly the event starts, and Kanaame ends up in a hotel room, wondering if it's just a normal friendly treasure hunt game. There are 300 players, including analysts and others. The goal is to collect rings. Those with fewer than 3 rings lose. Also, if a player goes out of event area, he'll lose. A girl in a school uniform gets teleported near Wang's location. She attacks Wang, thinking she might kill him with a high flame of 4,000 degrees, but then suddenly falls to her death from the rooftop, starting a slaughter. Meanwhile, Shuka looks for Kanaame in Shibuya. She finds a girl's body outline, several people taking photos. Suddenly a noise clears normal people, keeping them away from the event, indicating Game Master's power. Kanaame reads the event instructions at the hotel. Shuka reads too. The snake mascot on the app explains the treasure hunt. Find rings with gems. Each type of ring carries different points. Fight with other players for rings. The game will be on a battle royale mode, with map and alternate reality camera. Without 3 rings, they lose. Leaving the event area means instant game over. Kanaame saw there were only 300 rings left in this round, which means 1/3 of the players will be out soon. Feeling worried, he wanted to call Shuka, but the operator said he couldn't because they were in the game and could only chat through the game's chat feature. Kanaame checked the map app and saw many rings marked. Using the alternate reality camera app, he looked outside and saw the city looking like ruins, with red lights marking the rings. One of them was right next to him under the bed in his room. He bent down, grabbed the ring, and found it was a golden ring. When he looked at it through the alternate reality camera app, it resembled a ruby bracelet and was worth 500 points. When he opened his door to leave, he freaked out, seeing a body outline right outside his room. He tried to slide against the wall to avoid it, but bumped into another outline and realized he was in real trouble. There were other players in the hotel, and he needed to run outside to survive, otherwise he'll end up like them. Using the alternate reality camera app, he saw red lights moving on different floors, indicating people picking up rings. He rushed to the elevator to get down, but then thought to use the staircase instead, as elevator might be dangerous. He makes a handgun with his sigil, and saw someone approaching his floor. He was ready to fight, but panicked when he saw it was a man, fully armed, and has machine gun. He started firing at Kanaame. With a machine gun, he dashed downstairs, but found massive tree roots, blocking all exits to the ground floor. He tried to reach elevator, but the other player caught up, and started firing at him. Then it was game over for Kanaame. But the other player hesitated. Considering his options, he chooses eliminating Kanaame. Our guy. Kanaame begged for his life, insisted he had nothing else of value. But he reminded Kanaame that he was armed. As he prepared to shoot, his gun jammed, sparing Kanaame. Kanaame gets a chance, and turns, with his gun pointed at him, telling him to surrender or he'll shoot. But Kanaame is scared to shoot, and his hands shakes, knowing he won't pull the trigger. Adjusting his gun, he points at Kanaame, but then he ignores him, and lefts for the open elevator. He mocks Kanaame's hesitation, saying his bullets aren't worth wasting over someone like him. After he leaves, Kanaame falls, questioning the joy in killing. He knows he'll need 3 rings to survive this game. As he prepares to enter the elevator, a young girl stops him, warning it's dangerous. Kanaame explains the staircase is blocked, so the elevator is the only way to escape from here. Just as he tries to enter the elevator, he finds armed player inside, trapped by vines. The other girl introduces herself as Rin, also known as an analyst, suggesting they team up to escape the hotel. Meanwhile, outside the game, the Illuminatis watches the treasure hunt game live. They discuss as top point earners like Shuka and Wang, tallying their points and rings. They seize at the Shibuya Central Tower, where our guy, Kanaame, is located. Vines cover everything as chaos unfolds. Suddenly, the casino host meets a wealthy woman Themis, introducing herself as Trinity's manager. They watch as 4 newcomers chase after Shuka, thinking they have the upper hand. Shuka reminds them that worthless noobs are all the same. She easily kills 2 of them, then escapes while they chase after her. They shoot at her, but she easily defeats them with 1 attack, and wonders what Kanaame is doing. Themis says she likes Shuka, but an old man prefers boys, and wishes Shuka were a man. Themis says that regardless of anything, players and viewers benefit from the event, as they fight for money and powerful sigils. Back at the hotel, Rin motivates Kanaame, talking about the beauty of retreat and avoiding killing others. They form an alliance for now. He goes to the elevator and finds an armed player's body and copies his machine gun. Walking down the stairs, he sees roots. They can't get past those roots without a chainsaw. He asks about escaping this hotel with the help of a rope, but Rin says they are on a 40-floor building, and he might survive with his plot armor, unlike her as a side character. They walk upstairs, and he asks if she knows who controls the plants, but she doesn't have enough info, only that it's someone called the florist, who sets traps with plants. They'll be safer on higher floors. Kanaame wonders why some players haven't been teleported, like the other players who died in the elevator, meaning they might still be alive and coming after them. Using his alternate reality camera, he sees players chasing them. Grabbing Rin, they run upstairs, seeing players from the elevator, with branches on them teamed up, and controlled by the florist, following and firing at them. Rin throws a flash grenade, stunning them, and they continue running upstairs. Kanaame uses his phone, noting they're still being chased, wondering how they're being tracked without rings. Rin suggests they might be controlled by the florist, with a brainwashing drug from his plants. Without any plants around, Kanaame felt confused, and wonders how the florist is able to locate them. He looked around, and realized the florist was in the surveillance room, watching them through security cameras in the building. Kanaame shot down a camera and vowed to kick out the guy watching them. Then they both ran around the building, smashing as many security cameras as they could. They found a locked room that Rin had prepared earlier. Inside, they planned their next move. They decided on a 2-man plan. One would distract the florist with bombs, while the other would find and defeat him in a 1-on-1 fight. Meanwhile, the florist ordered his men to search all hallways in pairs and clear each floor 1 by 1. When his men finished searching, he wondered where the 2 of them had gone. He figured out their exact location based on the path they took to destroy the cameras. He wondered if they had some tricks to break into locked rooms without keys, as all keys were on the 1st floor, blocked by trees. His men eventually entered the room, but found it empty, though signs showed that the couple had been there. Suddenly, they heard an explosion from several floors below. The florist sent his men to block the staircase on the 26th floor. Rin tried to blow up the roots there with bombs, but the plan failed, as the roots were too thick. She then used a flash grenade to stun the pursuing men, and slipped past them with a stun gun. She started running upstairs, dodging bullets. It turned out that her sigil allowed her to calculate everything around her, even the precise location and effects of each atom. This let her predict the future to some extent. Her ability, called Laplace after the demonic concept, helped her gather information swiftly. She can predict what will happen to the group and others in future, to some extent. She uses this ability to gather information about people and sells it to survive in the Darwin's game. She's also skilled at dodging attacks and can take down others with ease. Her powerful abilities let her defeat all the mindless men chasing her, making everyone curious about her sigil. Meanwhile, Kanaame goes crazy and climbs down to the 1st floor, using a rope hanging from the window. He reaches the main reception hall and heads towards the surveillance room. But then, the florist steps out and wants to talk to him before they start fighting in this deadly game. The florist asks why Kanaame is playing this deadly game, and Kanaame explains that he was dragged into this game. The florist reveals that he's playing for money and says a person's life is worth millions of yen. Then, the florist wears his plant-based armor and charges at Kanaame. He throws a bomb at the florist, but it doesn't harm the florist's tough armor. The florist leaps down with a powerful punch that breaks the floor. Kanaame dodges and tries to shoot him with a handgun, but plants burst from the ground, knocking the gun away. Kanaame decides to get serious, and uses his sigil to create a machine gun he copied earlier. He fires many bullets with his machine gun, but they bounce off from the florist's hard armor. The florist uses a vine to break Kanaame's gun, surprising him. The florist says it's checkmate for him, as his sigil is revealed, allowing him to create any weapon he's seen, but with certain limits. Kanaame agrees, feeling severe pain, and knowing that he can only use his ability only a few times due to headaches. He makes another machine gun, and throws a bomb at the florist. The florist anticipates this, moving to attack, but Kanaame smiles, holding a flash grenade, eyes closed. He stuns the florist, and then disappears. Kanaame starts running, but the florist catches up, and punches Kanaame hard, knocking him down. Kanaame tries to shoot, but the florist shields him, and deflects the bullets, slapping him with a vine. Kanaame falls, thinking it's the end for him, when suddenly, the voice inside him speaks. His sigil explains that he can create things he's touched once, plus he gets full information of that item, and he can adjust features of the items he makes with his sigil. Last time, when he shot at the florist, he had to use his shield, which means he saw the bullets as a real threat. With this in mind, Kanaame knew what to do to break through his shield and win. Kanaame, feeling confident, stands up and starts firing like crazy at florist. He makes a quick change to his gun, sacrificing its lifespan for higher pressure and shooting power, which makes his bullets pierce through the plant guy's tough armor. Both of them use up all their energy and collapse, but the florist falls first, so Kanaame wins. Kanaame tells him to die from some illness or any other reason, and says he's not interested in killing anyone. Just then, Rin appears from behind, with her gun pointed at the florist's head. She asks him how many rings are in the building, and he says there are about 24 rings. Then Rin asks if he knew that the leader of the 8th clan was also taking part in the event. She explains that most of the strong players have already collected all the rings in the area, and the first stage of the event is ending soon. This means that the 8th clan will likely attack them for their rings, and since they're exhausted, they won't be able to defend themselves. To give everyone a better chance, Rin suggests they form a temporary clan to fight the 8th clan and improve their chances of survival. If you like this video, please subscribe my YouTube channel.